Oh, wow. Gesundheit to me, ladies and gentlemen. It is currently Thursday, February 28th, the last day of February before our favorite month, March, comes up. Welcome to Day 9 Daily number 562, where we learn to be a better gamer. In today's daily, we're going to look at a game between HuK and Sting with some fancy new overlay technology. And in this game, we're going to see how HuK deals with this idea of the Widow Mine opening. The Widow Mine drop that many Terrans are using a lot. And the general idea we'll be exploring, with this being an instance of it, is how do we deal with all the new stuff Terran can do? Reapers, mines, Hellbats, regular 2-Raxes, regular 2 double Hellion production, all the early expands. It seems like there's so much for Protoss to deal with. How do they deal with it? We'll talk about it today, because it's actually not that difficult. Might feel overwhelming. Totally not overwhelming. Actually makes the game a lot more interesting. I'm really excited. And we'll watch 2 games between HuK and Sting. One where he wins, one where he does not, and we'll talk about why. Also, I think HuK plays like... This game 1, I was like, oh! I was getting all wiggly because HuK played so well. Oh, I figured that it would be apt to drink coffee out of Kerrigan's face! Because Heart of the Swarm is coming out on Tuesday, March 12th. And on Monday, March 11th, is the Heart of the Swarm countdown party between Team Liquid and Day 9 TV. Are you ready? Who's coming to it? Who's going to attend it? Can all attend online. So that's happening. Tomorrow I'll be playing Magic the Gathering all day. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week, at the usual daily time, there will be the King of the Beta round of 8 on Monday and Tuesday, and then semifinal 1 on Wednesday, semifinal 2 on Thursday. So the matchups on Monday are Cats versus White Ra and Idra versus Morrow, and then on Tuesday is Pult versus Grubby and... Pult versus Minigun and Grubby versus TLO. I was about to say Minigun didn't play against TLO, and then I realized that I accidentally lied to you. And then the semifinals will happen Wednesday and Thursday, and then on Monday, March 11th, at the Heart of the Swarm countdown party, we'll see the 3rd, 4th place match and the finals. Other than that, how are you? It's Thursday. I'm very excited. Thursday's going to be pretty good, I feel. After this, I have to record both the semifinals, the 3rd, 4th place match, and the finals for the King of the Beta before the servers go down at noon tomorrow. And then I'm going to play a lot of Magic the Gathering tomorrow. It's going to be good. I feel like I'm missing something that I want to tell you. Whatever, let's talk about StarCraft. The Terran versus Protoss matchup. Okay, so I'm going to begin with a basic statement. Let's assume that we're Protoss and we want to be doing a 1-gate early expand. Really simple statement. I know there's 4 gates and there's like fast robo 2-gate and then expand, and there's like 3-gate, 1 Stargate all-ins. Let's ignore all of that and just talk about the absolute standard norm 1-gate early expand. Traditionally, here's a description of how to defend your expansion and things you consider. You open up with generally a Zealot or Stalker, or a Zealot and Stalker, and if you don't think that the Terran's attacking, you can skip the Zealot and just go for the Stalker. We start stockpiling up on sentries because we're spending our gas on the sentries early so they build up their energy. We're spending our minerals building gateways and robos and other tech structure. And we can defend those mid-game pushes with force fields and a couple of other gateway units, and then once we get to the 10-minute mark, we need to have some special defense for a player that has medevacs. And in Heart of the Swarm, there's these odd feelings because what most people have been doing is just following the 1-gate expand method straight up. 1 Zealot, 1 Stalker, maybe cutting the Zealot so I can give you the finger. Sorry. 1 Zealot, 1 Stalker, a lot of sentries, the 10-minute defense. Most people are doing this, but they're losing to Hellbats, to Widow Mines, to Speed Reapers at the start. Some players going Zealot Sentry and just dying to that right away. real painful. What we're going to be doing is looking at this opening from HuK and doing a lot of pausing and rewinding and just making sure that we're aware of all the key timings of when things can be thrown at us so we can do a process of elimination, because in reality, it's just not that difficult to hold off all the various things that Terran throw at us. And we don't even need to change our build order. We just have to be active with our stalkers at the start to be able to get ourselves a good setup. Now, by the way, for any of you who've never used Starboard, it's really nice. It's this thing up here that I can actually turn off, but I figure you would not be interested in me repeating that this is HuK and Sting, so I just put this thing on. They're not actually playing a series, but the Starboard does not work unless you... or it doesn't work without that. So either way, let me first note what's going to be going on, which is that HuK is going to be doing his usual banter, saying Terran Imba. See, Terran Imba, Wing of Liberty over HOTS, Reaper buff, Medevac buff, all soggy, no, but Terran soggy, and then Sting says no, and HuK's like, yeah, dude, come on, and he's like, Protoss is broken, hey now, hey, HOTS top ladder, how many Terran? No, Toss is at the top. And then they just think, and MC's at the top of the ladder, and then it's Hero, something like that. And then it's you Hero friends, Hero and MC, me too, Hero, but no ladder, blah, blah, blah. And then Sting says Toss imbalanced, to which HuK says, yeah, Toss is imbalanced. Alright, and I do this reference early on. Now there's the reveal that it's HuK, aha. Alright, cool. So, I skimmed through all that because I knew a lot of people in chat would be like, oh my god, what's going on in the chat? So I just took care of that. So now we can actually talk about what's going on in Camp HuK. HuK has done no scouting at the start. Now, I'll note right off the bat, any sort of early 2-racks plays in the main base, any sort of fast push with like fast tech lab and 1 Hellion, those sorts of things, we really need an early zealot. So since there's been no scouting by HuK, HuK does have to build the early zealot. Sensible enough. Everything is pretty much the typical Wings of Liberty look. Nothing exceptional in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. Good. Whoops. I'm actually going to stop before that second stalker gets built. And then I actually want to go over to Sting's base, because Sting is doing something that a lot of Terrans are doing now, which is you go 1 barracks, and then you go straight into a factory. Okay. Cool. Why did these things switch? I don't know why it does that. Did anyone else see this switch up there? Blowing my mind. Either way, things are going pretty much evenly timed. Now, one thing I'll note right off the bat, how do we ordinarily defend against all those early mid-game pushes from Terran? Well, as Protoss, what we normally do is we get a lot of sentries early on. We spend a lot of gas early on to be able to do that. So we don't in Heart of the Swarm because we have a Mothership Core. We can spend just 100 gas on the Mothership Core early, and we can turn our Expansion Nexus into the giant cannon, do the cannon spell. So, and in fact, because there's so much aggression that can happen early on, Double Stalker is starting to become very, very common. Right now, this Zealot is getting some key information. Ordinarily, a Reaper would have popped into the main by now. So we can say straight up, our opponent is not going for Reaper. We didn't see one here. We're not seeing one pop into our main base. Good. Now, there's some real sophisticated reads that you can make with, you know, exactly how many Marines you're seeing, and oh my gosh, this is 4 instead of 5, so I know this and that. We don't even need to do any of that stuff. We don't have to be sophisticated in the slightest. We can simply say, no add-on, Marines up in the high ground. We are up against an early expander or a teching player. That's it. Early expand or teching player. Those are the only 2 possibilities. So let's see how HuK answers this. We cannot hold. So our Zealot's just going to chill here. There's the good luck, have fun from Sting, and a real game begins. Yeah! So, okay, we're chilling here. We don't know whether a command center is going to lift and move down here. We're just going to basically contain it if he tries to move down with his paltry 5 Marines. Or, excuse me, soon-to-be 5 Marines. So, okay, now what is going on in HuK's base? Everything usual and intuitive, going for another assimilator, going for, could be a sentry, but will likely be a mothership core round now. Stalker kills this stuff off. And wow, refusing to step into the Heart of the Swarm game. A really early robotics facility. This is just so frickin' standard. So, watch this nice timing. HuK hangs out here. This is ordinarily around the time when there would be a few too many Marines. So HuK just pulls this Zealot back because it's not going to do anything. It's not going to contribute. It's going to have to run because it'll die otherwise. So, we just see HuK hold the Stalkers here, hold the Stalkers here, hold the Stalkers here. Okay, now what's going on at the front? Well, we're starting to increasingly suspect that he's not expanding. We're actually going to get a mothership core. We're actually not holding a watchtower. We're going to be scouting all around here. And then look at this last click through. It's actually just coming all the way back home. So I'm actually going to remove this production tab briefly right now as we're looking around. And yeah, just 3 gateways. Nice normal setup. Still seeing nothing, still seeing nothing. And I want you to note, I actually don't know if zooming in actually helps, but look at this ring right here. HuK is selecting these very frequently. I'll actually even back up before he tells them to move. This whole time that I'm saying, oh my gosh, is he early expanding? Is he early expanding? Look at how actively these are selected. You can see the red ring selected, rearrange, selected, selected, selected. They're not moving, but HuK's eyes on them. And then we have just a wonderful little timing here. 6:15. Okay, I haven't seen an expand. I'm just pulling right on back. Because you're almost certainly dropping me. Not a single sentry in sight. Not one. Now, I'll note, if we did see an expand, I'd probably throw down some sentries. We can deal with basic Marine timings if there's an expand. We can also begin stockpiling up our sentry energy if there's an expand. But HuK doesn't see an expand. In fact, he pulls 100% of his units back and just positions them to be able to deal with drops. Gas being spent on sentries, gas being spent on stalkers. Mothership core moving way out to poach for vision. And a forge going down.
Fall back to the shadows.
And what do you know, there's a drop that ends up swinging right on in. Mines try to burrow. Don't really do anything. Cool. I'm going to note another significant thing that happens right before this mine pops in. It's actually like right here. Yep, there's the medevac. So HuK, in this position, it's not just Widow Mines that he could be up against. He could be up against a very fast Banshee. Could be up against Hellbat drops, but, I mean, there's not really much that you're going to change if you're up against Hellbat drops versus mines. You're still just sort of spreading yourself out like this. And then, you know, running away with the Stalker and just kiting against it. Stalkers work quite nicely against Hellbats, just due to the fact that now you can only really have 2 dropping in there instead of the full 4 from before. And also, Hellbats have range 2 and Stalkers have range 6. So that's a pretty straightforward kiting. Against the Banshee, we're still getting the Observer out. We still have 1 heading out, but the Banshee doesn't really get cloak until 7 minutes and 30 seconds. So this is quite smart. This is actually just nice. I like to speak with the word brilliant. Brilliant is one of my favorite words, but I mean, this is just a nice defense. This is nice, intuitive, and there's really 3 pieces to this. The first piece, most notably being Foink, our first Zealot. moving all the way out. Can I actually go to 5 minutes? No, won't let me. Step 1, our first Zealot getting this key information. Right now, no Reaper. No Reaper. And then seeing that, okay, expand or tech, very simple conclusion. And then at 6 minutes, we just have both our Stalkers actively parked outside the front. We haven't needed to spend any gas on just going auto sentry mindlessly. And then at 6:15 we pull back so we can have everything back home at 7. It's really cool. And I mean, I'll actually show this timing as he's pulling back right in line with a medevac moving out. And doing something very atypical, not holding any watchtowers, just relying on timing. Just very, very, very nice, clean little play. So now that we've seen that, I just want to step right on in to the mid-game. So HuK does another thing that I just am really impressed by. I would genuinely mess this up, like almost always. HuK actually brings everything up here. He has one Stalker down here, clearly not enough. But that's okay, because if he is going medevac Widowmine, it's highly, highly unlikely that he, as a thinking player, is going to be following up with a second medevac. The Observer here is getting some key information. Of course, this pop-in, seeing all these into back, very useful. But most importantly of all, HuK's just keeping a good eye on this one single medevac. Sentry count at 0. 0 sentries build. Seems counterintuitive, but we already have this to be able to defend against. What have you. Double gas going down a little later. Not a huge deal. We spent a lot of minerals on our Stalkers early on, and we didn't spend gas on those sentries, so we're pretty much fine there. And this is the one last bit that I'm somewhat torn on, but I suppose it makes sense. HuK builds a cannon in each base. I'm real torn on that. Every time I see a cannon go down, I'm like, but that's a gateway. That's a gateway that could have been built. But either way, seems basically fine. Now, if I were playing, I'll note that I would do exactly +1 armor, very fast, 2 gates, and blink. So I'd be going 5 gate, blink. I would be adding on some sentries and expanding. Because, and why is that? Because I know for a fact he can't possibly be getting a lot of Marine Marauder. If he did go for very fast Widowmine drop, which is what he did do, he just can't possibly have a huge army, especially not even for that 10-minute mark. And he can't even have a lot of barracks. He can maybe have started 4 and 5, but they won't be done. He almost certainly has 3. So Blink Stalkers, in my eyes, is like a really nice choice. HuK also does something that, I mean, I don't know how else to describe it other than it's totally fine. It does a fine choice. Going for Robo and Twilight Council. Why Robo? Takes time to get there. Whew, nice reaction time there. Does take time to get there, and we now have bought ourselves a nice chunk of time. But we're starting to see now when HuK values taking the watchtowers. It's after the threat of these drops and mines have been abated, and like truly, fully abated. Because we've lost just one worker in that, it's now 50 to 36. We have an enormous economic lead. So now the big goal is to make sure that we don't die. Speeding it up. And yeah, in like 2 minutes, we'll just do a little breaky break. Sentry, or Observer count at 2. Going for the ever-infamous 6 gates and Colossus Robo on 1 base. And per usual, HuK has his gateways spread out in silly, huge distances from one another. And now we're starting to see the pullback to some standard looks. Blink. 6 gates. 2 sentries. Transitioning into Zealot Colossus. And HuK does this nice stringing along, and I don't think that there's that much super notable at this point, other than if a player goes for normal play, he will have Stim and Combat Shield done before 10 minutes, but with this, it delays it by about 90 seconds. I mean, in a lot of cases it's 2 minutes, but I like to round down to be safe. Unless I'm feeling super crazy confident. So HuK's just getting general good information, building up just the right mix of things. And the Mothership Core, the utility lady, is just going to do a nice little maneuver here. There's not a lot to analyze at this mid-game point in time. But Time Warp is really good for punishing a player who makes dim errors. I really wish Blink were done. Damn, do I wish Blink were done. Okay, 13 minutes. I do want to do a recap of this, of what we've seen thus far. HuK, with his early scout, crossed off Reaper and concluded very quickly what was going on, and significantly brings his dudes back to deal with the threat of Banshees or Widowmine drops or Hellbat drops. As things begin to be clear that this Widowmine drop is happening, HuK does an intuitive choice, getting the Forge down not only because he has the time to get the upgrades, but also because of the cannons versus the Widowmines at those expansions. Very easy to shut that down. And then, for the next bit, HuK just plays really standard. Just does the standard stuff. And we like that. We like that he's going for just 6 gates, Colossus with range, and Blink on 2 bases as he's getting his 3rd base. That's really nice, really standard, really normal. And why are we so thrilled by that? Because we can get into this sort of position, and we've now seen HuK is able to do what he wanted to do in the first place. Because in looking at a variety of Protoss vs. Terran replays, including some of the ones that you submitted to me for Newbie Tuesday, consistently I see Protosses just dying in the early game. And I'll see these Protosses that once they get to mid and late game, they're really good, but it's like Widowmine drops and Hellbat drops, and these new crazy obnoxiousnesses are just freaking impossible. So I really do like that. Nice opening from HuK. And then he did something normal. When we come back into part 2, we're going to see just kick freaking ass moves from HuK that just make me all wiggly. This is the sweetest freaking late game on this map I've seen in a long time, so stay tuned. We'll be back in 3 minutes. And because I'm a one-dimensional human, I am just going to play a song that I played before the show began.